Sunday morning when Brother Joshua spoke. Anybody remember what he spoke on?
Small things.
Small things. He used the scripture of Zechariah 4:10, who hath despised small things. And I kept thinking about what he was saying all week long. And I'm going to carry on from what he said, hopefully, and hopefully make some sense about small things or things that are insignificant. What I mean by insignificant, some things that are just not worth messing with, or something insignificant. And a lot of times we look down on small things or insignificant things. So that's what's on my mind and my heart. What do we usually want? Something big, like a lot of money.
Hunters want big horn, fishermen want big fish, and you don't like the little things. I like the little things.
I give you that maybe.
Little fish.
But small things are despised. Now, I mean, I find pennies all the time. We find them at Walmart, we find them on Tebow Street, and y'all don't be looking because those are my pennies. We've been doing it for several years now, and we got jars and jars of pennies. And most people, if they drop a penny, they go, let it go. I mean, that ain't worth saving. But you get 100 of them, you got some. And it don't take you long, I'll be honest with you. When you come home from work or whatever, and you dump the change out. I know when I was working, my cocoa was going to have change left over from the day, and I just throw it in the jar. And little things like that add up to bigger things. And that's what we want, mostly is big things instead of, they're not important to us. Tasha, I told y'all about Tasha, she was probably 2 or 3 years younger than what Maddie is now. And they had a thing for children at Oak Heritage. They had a little booth set up, and it's only children could go in that booth to buy a present. And they had, minute prices on these things. And so they wanted the kids to get, a little gift for mom and daddy or cousin or whatever. And Tasha went in there, that little booth, and stayed. I mean, it had to be perfect with Tasha. She loved things that got to be right. And she finally come out, and I showed y'all the little ship one time that she bought, probably less than a dime or so. But it wasn't the price of it as much as it was that she put her heart into it, and it was just a small thing, but it was priceless to me in general. I mean, it's just something small, very small. So little things are insignificant things. We do that a lot. God's Word teaches us about these small things. And turn over to Proverbs chapter 6. Well, Chris, you want to read 6 through 8?
Yes, I got it.
I want you to think about this. This passage is talking about a small thing that is very, very strong. Go ahead.
Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou rise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He winketh his eyes, he speaketh with his feet, he teacheth with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart, he deviseth mischief continually, he soweth discord.
All right, that's far enough. The main point I want to look at here is something that's very small, but you can glean many lessons from the ant. Most of the time, we think they're a nuisance, don't we? I've put all kind of ant killer and everything else in the ant beds, but I got them this time, Sure enough, they'll pop up somewhere else in the yard. And you put this, I put everything people told me to put on ant beds to get rid of them. Well, there's a valuable lesson here. These ants will fight you. And they won't fight you, they will bite you. So ants you can learn lessons from them as a child of God. They're not lazy, it says. In Thessalonians 3:10, the Word of God tells us if a man don't work, he shouldn't eat. Well, these ants aren't lazy. You tear a bed down, kick it with your shoe or whatever, and get them stirred up, and they'll bite you. They'll fight you and bite you, but also they are not lazy. They will build it right back. And we've all seen that. But nature, the Bible tells us over in Corinthians 11:14, doth not nature teach you? What is it teaching us? Be like the ant. Be like something small. It's something that's insignificant to the world. But we as God's people, we can learn from this ant not to be. When I said he's a fighter, he's going to protect his nest. They got all kinds of different kinds of ants. You got ants that feed one another. You got ants that are soldier ants. You got all kinds of different. You got queen ants. You got all kinds of ants. I think a survey brought forth those I think it was just in the United States. I remember seeing it on the Nature channel on TV. There's 10,000 different kinds of ants. Can you imagine that? Those killer ants, I think, are in Africa, but there's all kinds of ants, and they all have a duty to do. And when I said they're a fighter, over in Timothy 6:12, Paul says, fight the good fight of faith. Lay hold on to eternal life. Are they fighters? Well, we can remember we've got to fight off the enemies also. So they have unity. What I mean by unity? Christ told us to go out 2 by 2. Those disciples, what is it, Brother David, unity?
They're all of one mind and one accord. They work together without a supervisor over them. They all know what they got to do and they get it done.
Okay. They work in unity, and he mentioned about supervisors that says they have no boss over them. You don't have to go out there and tell an ant, all right, you get busy and do your thing. No, I ain't going to do that. Well, he won't do that. That ant, you can learn from that ant. They're not insignificant. They're not worthless. You can learn these lessons. Turn over to St. John chapter 6, and also think again about insignificant, something that happened that was very insignificant or small, and it was also huge. Brother David, you want to read?
Sure.
Read the first. I think we have to read all 1 through 13 in John chapter 6.
After these things, Jesus went over the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great multitude followed him because they saw his miracles, which he did on them that were diseased. And Jesus went up into the mountain, and there he sat with his disciples. And the Passover, a feast of the Jews, was nigh. When Jesus then lifted up his eyes and saw a great company coming to him, he said unto Philip, whence shall we buy bread, that these may eat? And this he said to prove him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered him, 200 pennyworth of bread is not sufficient for them, that every one of them may take it. One of the disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said unto him, there is a lad here which hath 5 barley loaves and 2 small fishes. But what are they among so many? Jesus said, make the men sit down. Now there was much grass in the place, so the men sat down in number about 5,000. And Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed to the disciples, and the disciples to them that were set down, and likewise of the fishes as much as they would. When they were filled, he said unto his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain, that nothing be lost, Therefore they gathered them up together and filled 12 baskets with the fragments of the 5 barley loaves which remained over and above them that had eaten.
This is a valuable lesson. First of all, this lad, his mama probably went a lot of trouble making those 5 loaves of bread and then the fish. And he went, one of the things I see in this lad went, he was felt led to go to where Jesus was, to be with Jesus. And the other people gathered, there's a big multitude of people, it says there, and they were all there, and Jesus saw them out there, and he said, I'm gonna feed them. He asked Philip, first of all, where's the food going? Well, we don't even have enough money a penny's worth to go get some. And he already knew what he was going to do, it says in that scripture, if you read on Philip. And he took those 2 fish and those loaves of bread and blessed them, and he told them to sit down on the grass out there, a multitude of people, and 5,000 was there. And they all sat down out there on the grass, and he began to preach to them and all, and he blessed those fish and those loaves. And he fed all those people out there. That's an amazing miracle. Well, Jesus didn't go around and say, look what I did now. I just fed 5,000 people. Isn't that a miracle? Y'all come follow me. Jesus never said a word about that. He did say this. He said, once they eat it, gather up the fragments, and there was 12 baskets full. 12. Now, that's what was left over after he had blessed them. They had 12. How many apostles or disciples were with him?
12.
How many baskets? You see the correlation here? The basket had 12 baskets. I think they were moving on to preach about the kingdom of God. And those, I may be wrong on this, but I see this as they had food for each one of those 12 that were going on with Jesus. Now, there's many miracles, but we think of those things like that as insignificant. It's just a small fish, and Brother David knows about small fish. I caught some this week, and I thought about David, but decided I'd go ahead and throw them back because I didn't have time that they had to go to town. And when I got back there, so we just went ahead and throw them back in, and he would have had a stroke. He'd have seen me throw them. But they're good. They are good. But those small fish became a miracle from God. God blesses them. So insignificant things, we overlook those things. I'm not going to go to read a bunch on David. We all understand what David did. He wasn't king yet, but he was a lad, and he went to see his brother. So we're in Samuel 17, if you want to look up later. But David was a lad. Listen to this now. He was a lad. What do you call it? What do you think about a lad? Somebody young, right? Now, he went out there to his brothers and all, and he saw the big giant. Now, the giant was huge, but the lad, David, was small. You see an unbalance here? But David was blessed by God. And the Spirit of God come on David, and he got 5 smooth stones. He didn't get big rocks and big boulders. He was led to get those 5 small stones to put in a slingshot. And back then, I was thinking about David last night about David built some slingshots. You remember building all those slingshots?
Still got some.
And you pull them back and shoot through the V or whatever it is. David, the other David in the Bible, he didn't have a slingshot like that. He had one, you chunk it like this, and he done killed a lion, and he done killed a bear, and that giant, that big old giant was nothing to him. He knew that God was with him, and he knew that God was going to take care of him against that huge giant. 9 foot, was it 9 foot tall? Something like that.
When I read in the back of the Bible, it gives you what the measurements and all were in the Thompson chain. I come up with 10.5 feet.
Well, that's big.
That's
anyway.
about the height from the floor to the ceiling. And so just picture you compared
Was David insignificant and small to him? To him he was, but he found out something. He got one right between the eyeballs. A rock. God led that rock. David didn't lead that rock, but God led that rock and hit that giant right in the noggin, and he went down like a rock. And then he cut his head off. If you keep reading on that, but insignificant and small things. Those small stones. If you want to read 42, 49 later on, you can read about David and killing that giant. Now there's other lessons. You remember over in Exodus chapter 4, verse 2, I believe it is, Moses, he had a rod, and it was just something small. At that point, he had a rod. But prior to that third chapter of Exodus, he was out on the backside of the desert, and he went up there and seen the burning bush and so forth. And it comes right on down to 4:2 about Moses having a rod, and the Lord told him to strike the ground with it. And I ain't talking about the rock, but I struck the ground. He struck the ground, and it become what? A snake, a serpent. But that shows the power of God, just using something like a small rod, and then he showed him that God showed him, he told him to reach down and pick it up. He picked up the snake, now the serpent. And we got snake handlers in Tennessee and Primitive Baptist, I ain't told about that kind. But Moses picked up that snake and it turned to a rod again. You see how these miracles, you take small, insignificant things, and old Samson, you remember old Samson, how he was a strong man. He took the jawbone of an ass and hooked 1,000 men with it. And then he went out there and he got real thirsty, and God hollered out that jawbone and gave him some water to drink because he was obedient to him. He was hot and thirsty. You got to kill 1,000 men by yourself. You could probably be pretty tired, I imagine. But anyway, Judges 15, if you want to look at it later, it's talking about the jawbone of an ass and Samson and how he killed it. The First Kings, there again, there's a lot of reading there about a widow woman. Elijah was sitting out under that juniper tree, remember? And then God told him to go to Zarephath, and he wound up with a widow woman. And the widow woman had just enough of food for her and her son. Just a small amount of flour or whatever it was, and oil, and cruise they call it, to fix a meal, one meal left for her and her son, and then they was going to die. That's what he said. And he came up to him and he said, "Go get me some water." And she was going to get the water. He said, "Now while you're getting the water, make me a little cake." Well, they didn't have but enough to make one meal. But the insignificant thing turned into a big thing. What happened? She went ahead and obeyed the man of God alive. And she made the money, and it never run out no more. They always had something to eat. God's going to supply all your needs, right? He kept on and kept on and kept on supplying the food. All because of obedience of that widow woman. So, are little birds important? Every little sparrow that falls to the ground is important. They're not insignificant. They're small, but even God feeds them and takes care of them. A while ago, let me see what we got here. Insignificant or small things, like I told you, it means to be unimportant to somebody or whatever. Can you have people in the church or on your job or anywhere that has a lot of authority or power over you? And there's a lot in the Bible that has power over us. But if your job and your church or whatever, you get around those kind of people and they get the big head. You ever heard of the big head? They get a little big head, and then Everybody else is insignificant, smaller. Shouldn't be like that. Turn over to Corinthians, and I'll tell you why that is not supposed to be like that. In Corinthians chapter, 1 Corinthians chapter 12, start with verse 9, it says, well, tell us about we're one spirit and all these things. I'm just going to start with start with verse 9. To another, verse 9, it says, to another faith by the same Spirit, to another gift of healing by the same Spirit. I always talk about one Spirit now. It comes out on down and tells you about that. Now I'm going to go to verse 12 right quick, and it says, whereas the body is one, are those ants a unity, a body is one I told you about? For the body is one and have many members, and all members of the body, being many, are one body. You can have a lot of people, but you're still just one body. In other words, you're to be close together, and to be unity like those ants did. Also is Christ, for by one Spirit we're all baptized into the body, whether we Jews, Gentiles, or be bond and free, and made to drink into the one Spirit. For the body is not one member, but many. Now listen, if the foot say, because I am not the hand, I'm not of the body, is there therefore not of the body? If the ear shall say, because I'm not the eye, I'm not the body, is therefore not the body? If the whole body were the eye, where were the hearing? You get the picture here. They all are important. It don't matter if you was the eye. It don't matter if you was the ear. It don't matter if you was the foot. You are not insignificant. I don't care how small you look like to the world out there. You are important. Every one of us are important. God did not make junk. I've heard that said that before. Well, certainly everything is junk. But everybody, what he's saying here is everybody is important. Don't get the big head because you got a little bit of authority on your job or wherever, or church, or anywhere you are. You're not no more important than one of those he's telling us right here. We all are important to God. God has given every one of us a gift to use. And if you're going to be a good steward for him and the kingdom, you need to do that. I'll just mention a couple. You can go home and look later. A little leaven. Is that important? A little leaven liveth the whole lump. In other words, a little sin gets bigger and bigger and bigger. I was out at Baptist Village Oak this week. We were trying to get Janice's mom down out at Baptist Village. And my daddy wrote in a book. He had a book written. And in that book, it was about the Baptist Village Oak. And we got thinking about that. That oak tree's been there over 100 years. And I looked at it, and I get a little acre. It started off one small acre to make that Baptist Village Oak, and y'all all seen it. It is humongous, but it's all because of one little thing. Does not nature teach you there? Yeah. You take corn, put corn in. It has many ears. I don't know how many per stalk, but one makes a bunch. A little mustard seed. The birds, it says if you got the face of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. Now, I don't understand all that, but that's what it says. It's important to know that. I got to bring in Zacchaeus because he's a wee little man. He's not insignificant. Now, he was a crook. Turn to Luke 19. Christy, will you read the first 10 verses?
Yes, sir.
And think about this small man that was rich. And me and Zacchaeus has got a lot in common. I'll tell you about it in just a minute. A lot in common.
Luke 19, 1 through 10.
Yes.
Okay. And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. And behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which was the chief among the publicans, and he was rich. And he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and could not for the press, because he was little of stature. And he ran before and climbed up into a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him, and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste, and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. And he made haste, and came down, and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured, saying that he was gone to be a guest with a man that is a sinner. And Zacchaeus stood and said unto the Lord, Behold, Lord, the half of my goods I give to the poor. And if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. And Jesus said unto him, This day is salvation come to this house, forsomuch as he also is a son of Abraham. For the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost.
Okay, thanks for reading that. I picture Michael Davinio. Anybody know him? Little short man played on TV. Huh?
Danny DeVito.
Yeah, whatever his name. Little short man. Y'all know him, don't they? And there's a doctor out there when I was in the hospital, and the doctor looked just like him. I called him doctor. Anyway, I pictured Zacchaeus as a man like that. He's short in stature. Most people that are short in stature are kind of feisty sometimes over the years. But anyway, he was wanting to see Jesus. That shows that he had a great love for Jesus. But I don't think he just went because he was curious about the miracles and things like that. Now, Jesus went out of his way, and I think he was led to that sycamore tree that he climbed in. And he was a crook, but he was a sinner. And everybody that Jesus told him to come down out of that tree and go home with you, and they said, he's a sinner, you can't do that. Tell me somebody that's not a sinner. We all are sinners. We're none good. We all fall short. But anyway, the bottom line is, Zacchaeus was saved. Now, I'm not talking about eternity. He was already eternally saved. He's a child of God because he was willing to do what was right. And he showed the love to Jesus, and he said, I'll give back half or anything else that I'll take care of it. He was a rich man. He was a young man, and he was a saved man. He climbed up in that tree, and I got thinking about that tree. He went up that tree because he couldn't see for the crowd. He was too small. And when I was a boy, I used to climb trees all the time. I loved climbing trees. I especially loved riding those little saplings down. I'd get up the top and just ride them down. And I'd climb in a tree high up there, and then I'd get so high I'd be scared to try to come down. You ever done that? Maybe not. But we had a bunch of trees, and I had to climb them trees. And I did. Well, Zacchaeus climbed trees. And Zacchaeus was a rich man. Well, I'm a rich man. I may not have a lot of money, but I'm rich in God. God gives you riches. Every one of us are rich. We know that. And every one of us are saved. Jesus said, today is, I think it's verse 5, today is the day of thy salvation. So we're saved eternally, and Zacchaeus, I feel like, was saved eternally. But he was also saved by doing what was right. To give back all the stuff he'd stolen. And what did Jesus tell him? Come on down, I'm going to beat your ass with you. Thank the Lord for insignificant and small things. Anybody got anything?